And so I decided to pursue the master's dream based on my own steps. And so my father was working for a national bank in India. He was general manager there. So I went to him, and getting the loan was easy. So I took an $8,000 loan, and I bought my plane ticket, and I knew how I would pay for my first semester of tuition. That's all I knew. Off on the plane, Texas Tech in Lubbock. It's out of nowhere. It's about 4 hours from Dallas, 6 hours from Houston. That's where I ended for my first semester. And the 8,000 didn't last very long. It just pretty much the out-of-state tuition. I don't know if anybody here pays out-of-state. If you're paying out-of-state, housing, and the plane ticket, 8,000 doesn't last very long. So I had to figure out very quickly. And I'd never worked before this in my life. So it was a quick realization that I had to figure out the next steps very quickly. Otherwise, I'm calling back home for more money, which is what I did not want to do. It's kind of like a pride moment at that point, I'm sure. So I had the safety net that I could have called back home, but I chose not to. And I'm sure, again, a lot of you are, people go through that, and this is just, I'm telling you what my journey has been and what I've been through. So it's been good, but it's just been a lot of perseverance, a lot of hard work, a lot of planning, a lot of just making it happen type of stuff as we've constantly done these things. So first year into this, first semester, my brother was doing his undergrad here at ODU. And so I thought, okay, I had no other family in the States. I said, okay, I'll be at least closer to him. So I took a transfer to ODU. So I transferred all my 9 credits from that first semester, moved over here. In fact, I think the good part was I took care of the most difficult course, which is the algorithms in computer science. I did that at Texas Tech, so I think that was the only positive part of going to Texas Tech. So I think that was the reason I still could have a 4.0 GPA, because otherwise, here you cannot get an A, I think is what I've heard. So came here, started doing my master's at ODU, and this was 2003. 2004, I found an internship with a company called Require in Virginia Beach. Okay, this is where kind of things just lined up. And so you always go with the flow, things line up, you figure out, okay, what's the best choice? And I somehow went for this internship. And this was a great company to start with. This was a small startup. It had not scaled yet. I was the 8th hire. It was a family type of environment, very small business. But there was a big promise. I was the first IT guy. I went in there first day with suit and tie, and I was told, okay, fix the printer. Okay. So the next day I went in with shorts because I knew, okay, this is not that's where a lot of these type of realizations came along, that it had to be wear your multiple hats, do whatever is needed, and get this company going. This company, if you look it up, it's still doing wonderful. I stayed with this company 10 years. So from intern, I found a full-time job, became a manager, built my own team, and resigned as a chief technology officer 10 years later. This company showed me, I got to do a lot of hands-on. I had to build my own team. We went from 8 people to 100 plus people in this area. The services went nationwide, and the company just did phenomenal as we were doing real estate technology. So we were building technologies for the real estate. Even through the 2008, 2009 years, these were banner years for the company. But that's around the time when I started toying with the whole entrepreneurial bug kicked in, and some of these startup events were happening, and I became part of that. And I've known Nancy since then. So several years I've known Nancy, just started learning that process of being behind a desk, doing this programming, building a team, to now coming out and saying, meeting people, networking, figuring out what other people are doing. Just like what you're trying to come out here today to learn and see what my journey has been. And so 2008 onwards, it has been a constant just hustle to keep stretching the horizon and learning more. What else can I learn? And I knew that, so that's around the time when the iPhone and the iPhone started coming out, and I started building my own apps. And so we built, I hired a team member in India at the time. I still had a day job. So if you see the timeline, 2004 to 2014, I was in a day job. Okay, 2008, I came up with these ideas. I started building my own apps, and we got noticed. So we were featured in LA Times. We won a Microsoft competition. It was a global competition. We won the design work. So they featured our app at the Mobile World Congress in Spain. So the event that's going on right now in Spain, several years ago we were featured as one of the apps there. And that was kind of like where I had tasted the blood, where I had tasted that what this could become and what it could be, and I started dreaming of those days where I could have my own business. Okay, and I'm sure how many of you here have a business currently? Like, do you have currently a business? Great. And how many plan to be in business of your own? Okay, so some of the same hands raised, some of the others didn't. So I want to start with 2008. I was one person, and hired a team member in India. Along with my day job, I would work with her at nights. So this is kind of out of necessity, where the day job was keeping me very busy. But I would go home, spend time with family, and then start again. Okay? Several years of my life I did that. Whatever it took, I put those hours in. And I started adding team members in India because I couldn't work with another team here during daytime. I would meet with prospects and clients, friends like Kiran, I would meet them here during daytime and find prospects, meet them, but then tell them, look, this is how I work, I'll get it done overnight. So this was starting off my freelance work, just getting a taste of the entrepreneurial thing. And in 2012 is around the time when I knew, okay, this is my next step. I had started lining up a book of business. We had customers that believed in us. These customers trusted us. They were telling other people that we existed. And that was a beautiful thing. That kind of gave me the confidence that there's something concrete here. And so I did not take the risk of leaving my job, going all in, put my house on the line, none of that. Okay, so I'm kind of like an entrepreneur walking on eggshells. I took it easy. So this is a different lesson I want to teach you here. I did not go all in, guys. You don't have to go all in. At least in my position, I had a child, I had a wife, I had a house to pay for, and I was making good money in my day job. I had to work hard, so just physically I took a toll, but I tried to not bring that stress back to my family. So I took whatever it took to keep making, putting savings aside that I could use as a platform when I decided. Now 2014, and you don't see that here, but 2012 I started TechArk. My wife is an architect. I'm a technology guy, so we did tech and arc, and we just combined the things. And so that's how, coming up with the name is so hard. We were right by the Vijay Beach Town Center. Thank you. And so it has taken, and so it has now become a story of its own where some people say, okay, it's Noah's Ark, or you say people from technology, or we leave it to them, leave it to whatever connotations they want to come up with. But that's the true story, that we were right by the town center, fountain in the town center. I'm sure you've all been there. My son was running around, and we were like, okay, what should we call this thing? And we said, we thought of plum. American Express had plum already. We were like, okay, what other fruit can we call it? There's banana and apple and all this. And we said, okay, this is good, TechArk. We just TechArk, and it's stuck. And I think the only change over the years we made is we made the A capital, because people would always call and say, is this TechArk? And it's not TechArk, it's TechArk, right? I digress here, but some of these things, you just become part of, you look back and you say, that was fun. That was, now going back, I cannot change the name, but I think you can put a different name at the time. So 2014 required got sold to a group of investors. Okay, if I had not started this business, or I had not gotten a taste of this, I would have been scrambling to find another job. But I had already been waiting for the push, and the push happened. The company got sold. The investors came in. I didn't want to stick around with the new people. I already had this book of business lined up. Dinner time, I was already having discussions with my wife. Should I leave? Should I not? And this timing was perfect. So I just went in one day, resigned. Never thought I would do that. For 2 years, now I think back and I think about it and say, I should have done it sooner. Okay. You'll come across those moments in your life too. 2014, I left my job. So now, we've been 4 years, so 6 years, officially we've been in business. 4 years, it's been full-time focus. Okay. Now coming back to the topic of scaling your business. So let me take you to TechArk. 2014, we were about 8 people. I was the one here, 7 people in India, 6 or 7 people in India. And these were all my own team members. I had trained them over the years, mentored them on what I believed my values were, what my customers were asking for, and what I wanted from them. And I would tell them things, and things would get done at night when I'm sleeping. So I had to trust these people across the world to do these things. And I think one of the big things was because I grew up in India, I could connect back to that. The English is the English, but it's not the same English. The deadline is not the same deadline. Communication is not the same communication. And those things, I think, again, if you look back, at whatever you do over your life, things always connect. If you've seen Steve Jobs' commemoration speech, it's very true that anything you learn, maybe hopefully a couple of points from today's talk, you could take back, and maybe 10 years from now you could look back and say, that guy taught us that, or talked about this, which I was able to explore further. So I've always been on this journey of what can I build, and from the first day onwards, the thing was I'm going to build something big. And I want to build it to where, I want to build it where I have fun doing it, money happens along with it. For me again, my personal passion is not, I'm not driven completely by money, it is more of really what I'm trying to build. And that is truly what my team is after now. And that's why people are joining us with that vision. So today we started out primarily as a software developer. That is what I was, right? An app developer, software developer. And then along the way we've added different services, we've seen what the market entails, we talk to customers, we talk to people, and we see what other services we could offer. We bring in the right talent, and we make it part of our process. And so we've done, last year alone, I think we did 100 plus websites, and this is where I wanted to show you, the scaling up part cannot happen just with 8 people. Today we are a team of 55 plus. There's a journey in the last 4 years, to go from 8, even from 1 to 8, to 8 to 15, to 15 to 55. And the systems you start on day 1, those systems don't last to support the next step. The foundation has to change, in my eyes. It has to you have to go back to the core, keep really figuring out how will you take the next jump. If we would have been happy with 10 or 15, it would have worked. But again, that's the hunger in us to keep finding out, okay, how can we keep growing more, and how can we keep impacting what we've been able to do. And it's a never-ending process. And so now, if you look back at our portfolio, last year alone we did 100 plus websites. We did software development for companies from Israel to Canada. We have many big names in this area that are our clients. And then on top of it, we built our digital marketing team in the last couple of years. So where we can now help you with logo and branding, building your website, building out the custom workflows you need in your business for process improvement or automation. And that could be with web, mobile, cloud, and we can then help you tell the story with digital marketing. So if you see the dots connect, they're not unrelated services. They're all built on one from the other. Okay. Any questions so far? So this is the building. It's not as clear as it should be, but this is a building that we bought 2 years ago. Okay. So again, you have to plan these steps to figure out what is the right timing to do these things. But when I left my job, we went into a shared office. 2 years we stayed there, again saved more money, and then 2 years ago we were able to make this decision to say, okay, let's be closer to ODU, let's be next to Norfolk, that's where more business is. We want to tap into talent, we want to keep growing our customer. And this was a strategic move for us. And we were able to find this building, that my team loves it. It is, if you go towards the downtown, overlooking Brandon, you'll see us on the right, after the Chrysler Bridge, you'll see the Hague Bridge. So, coming back to the scaling up part, so I want to talk about, I brought 2 books with me, and I want to show you these 2, and if you want to make notes for these 2. So there's one book called The E-Myth Revisited. Have you heard of this book?
Yes.
Okay, great. Nick, you read it?
Yeah.
Reading it, okay, good. And then there's another book called Traction. Okay, these 2 books, I've read a lot of stuff. Okay, I am a voracious reader, but these 2 have made a big impact. Okay, and that is what I wanted to, again, with the time I have, I wanted to leave you with these 2. And the rest of the talk is going to go through these and see how did I go to this and transition to that. Okay, and happy to answer questions along the way. So this is the first book, The E-Myth. So I won't keep going back to the years and keep telling you the historical dates and stuff. But as I started building TechArk, and we were maybe 8 people, I met a guy, John Cunningham. He's a good friend of mine now. Met him on LinkedIn. Okay, met a lot of people through LinkedIn. I think even Mallory and I first connected on LinkedIn. Great platform. I love it from a business owner standpoint. This guy, I just unselfishly, he would meet with me once every 2 months or so. I'll buy him coffee. And the rest of it was just me asking questions. Just bombard him with questions. And he would just listen to me and answer some of the things. Some of these he would just come back and give me answers. Okay, till date, I don't know why he did it. He doesn't know. I think it was just again why I'm here today. Okay, I think that's how I could probably put it the best way. So one breakfast, I met with him, and the next week, this book showed up at my doorstep. Okay, He had written this book to me for me. And so he said, look, all the questions you asked, you should read this book, because this is something I think that can help you with. Okay? So this book talks about 3 roles. And the 3 roles are an entrepreneur, a manager, and a technician. Okay? So let's go deeper into these 3 roles. So an entrepreneur is a visionary. This guy lives in the future. He's way out there. Okay? He's like, leave me alone to my dreams. I'm going to keep building stuff. Somebody's going to come up behind and pick up the pieces. The guy always lives in chaos. Okay? A lot of it is probably me right now. And where I am. Okay? So, but a lot of what gets done in this country and a lot of what small business does cannot happen without an entrepreneur. A manager is the opposite. So when an entrepreneur lives in the future, a manager lives in the past. Okay? And I should question you for some of the things you've read, right?
Yeah.
So the manager, or you can tell me if I'm telling, I read this maybe several years ago, so you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. So the manager, thank you. So the manager lives in the past. The manager is like, the manager likes order. The manager likes processes. The manager is like, okay, give me the systems. I want to take a slow approach. I want to build it right. When an entrepreneur shows up, manager says, oh my God, here's this guy again. Okay? And so they're truly opposite. And then comes the technician. A lot of us are technicians. A technician is the worker. The technician lives in the present. The technician says, I know my trade, leave me to what I do. I don't want to worry about the future entrepreneur. I don't want to take care of this past manager. I don't care about the documentation. Just leave me to the work. Let me get it done. The funny part is, and this is again, I'm kind of explaining you what the book says, so you don't have to read the book, or I guess you may be excited to read the book. So this is not like genuine information that I'm getting. It is coming from this book. In each one of us, all 3 live in us. Okay? All 3 personalities are in each one of us. The percentages will vary. How you balance it will vary. And just the recognition of that and knowing that those 3 exist, and those 3 are what you will need to start your own business and be in business and scale your business is very critical. And that I think was, for me, was the aha moment. Okay. Now, the book goes deeper into saying, typically, mostly you see a 10% entrepreneur, 20% manager, 70% is the technician. Okay. And so most of us, we are technicians. I was a programmer. I would write code all day long, leave me to my laptop, I would write it, I could chunk it out, crank it out, I could release these apps. And that's what a technician typically does. And there is an example here for a baker. Baker loves to bake pies. Baker just makes all sorts of pies, but the baker doesn't want to go to the day job, doesn't want to answer to the boss, doesn't want to meet the revenue requirements, doesn't want to listen to the, all the things that a business needs, that the boss is asking for. So what does the baker do? The baker decides one day that the paycheck is not worth it. I can do this on my own. I'm going to go and try and start my own business. Okay? So the technician all of a sudden starts becoming an entrepreneur. Okay? The entrepreneurial bug kicks in. And this is where it's a very dangerous moment for entrepreneurial disease. Say again?
The entrepreneurial disease.
The entrepreneurial disease. That's a good way to put it. So it's a fleeting moment, okay? Because the entrepreneur, it's an exciting moment. It's like, okay, it's filled with thrill. Because I can be my own boss. I can control my own time. I thought of the same things. I could sit by the beach, read a book, because I love to read books. Okay? How many days have I gone and sat at the beach and read the books? You can answer that. What they realize very soon is they are no longer able to, they have to still bake those pies, but on top of it, they have to meet payroll. They have to take care of sales, the business development. They have to handle marketing. They have to handle finance, which is payroll and plus other things. And a slew of other things, line of credit with a bank, insurance, a bunch of other stuff that lines up that the technician never thought of and the entrepreneur never thought of. Okay? And that's where some of the manager capabilities come in. And the quicker you transition and try to get those balance, there are 2 ways to go about it, is what I found it practically. One is you look back and say, okay, I have to balance it, because again, if you're starting in bootstrapping it, there's only so much money you have. You cannot just hire a bunch of people, right, unless you raise money. We never did, we just bootstrapped it. So for us, it was a matter of how can I wear these hats to the best of my abilities, keeping a conscious hat on that I may have to switch from an entrepreneur one day, or one third of my day, to manager, to a technician, and do it all every day, right? But then very quickly you want to know, the second approach is that you start doing this, you go through the grind, it prepares you for managing better, I feel. And that's where the second approach, which is more scalable, is you start finding the like-minded people. And you start finding, when I say like-minded people, not the same people. Because you may be an entrepreneur, you don't want to find just another entrepreneur. You want to find the manager, you want to find the technicians. So what I first did, I hired programmers. 4 years now, I have not written a single line of code. I have people that now, you don't want me to log into your website and fix anything. When 12 years, that is all I did. Okay? If you ask me what is the latest version of this programming language, I don't know. But I can tell you, my team member knows. My team member knows probably what's coming next after that. Because that is what I imbibe in them, saying, this is what you're carrying this from this point onwards, I cannot do this anymore. And that was our first kind of like the scaling up moment. When I was about that 7, 8 people, to try and figure out how will we go from 8 to 15. That is how we hired for those hires. We hired the managers, we hired the technicians, and that left me to be more on the entrepreneurial side. With me so far? Questions? I'll keep going and then we'll come back to this. So again, and I hope this is making sense to people who are in business, trying to grow business, that you have to figure out how to get this balance. Because you're going to otherwise so exhilaration goes to terror, and terror goes to despair. Okay, and this is where you'll be at such a frustrating end of business. And that's what most of the people do in small business. And that is why, one of the reasons, there are many other reasons, but that is one of the prominent reasons small businesses fail. Because the baker is no longer even able to bake the pies. Okay? And that is as true as it can get from, in my job, when it's a service. Now, again, there are other businesses that are more product focused. It may not apply exactly the same way. I'm coming at it more from a service standpoint. Our business is completely built on service. Every project, there are people involved. We have to deliver to that service. We have to deliver to the promises and the commitments we make. And if you now look back, if Pratik was leading you all along, and now if other people have to come in and reflect and represent the company, that's a big moment. That is a big scaling. Because otherwise, the same way you go up, the same way you go down, because your credibility is destroyed as you bring other people in. Okay? So this is the time, let's say 2014, when we were about 15 of us, and we had just now made this decision of, okay, we're going to go full time, and then, a couple years later, I bought this building. And so now we're like, okay, now we need to, there's more work coming, and this e-myth thing doesn't work anymore. Like, it's enough, but I have the manager, I have the technicians, I have the entrepreneur thing, but there's more to it. And that's when this next book happened. Okay, so this was again out of coincidence, or not so much coincidence, but again, I found a nugget that I hung on to. So last year, this is about a year old, so it's not like several years of me practicing it. This book is called Tractions by Gino Wickman. So I went to a customer of mine, a prospect of mine actually, in Hampton. And we were trying to deal with, so Michael from my team and I, we went there and we wanted to sell to this prospect. Okay? So we're going in there saying, okay, this is what we'll be able to do, and we'll be able to sell him on this and this and that. We sit down, and the guy is surrounded by management books, posters, and for the next 2 hours, we didn't get a chance to speak. He grilled us. Inside out, what is your business? Why are you doing this? Why this service than the other? How are you going to scale? All sorts of questions. 2 hours, we could not say a word. We were there to sell. We could not do anything. 2 hours later, he says, Pratik, if anything, you wasted 2 hours of your life with me. Read this book. This will help you. So I came out and said, Michael, I'm ordering this right now because I did waste 2 hours of my life. I could not sell. I went there to sell. But I ordered that book, showed up from Amazon 2 days, right? And then started reading it. And this is the book, Traction. So if you're not, anybody reading Traction here? No, right? Okay, it's not very popular. But if you go back and look at it, it is extremely, the reason I liked it the most, it's simple. It's not a bunch of tools. a lot of theoretical knowledge and a lot of complicated tools. It's 6 things. Okay, 6 things. So vision, people, data, issues, process, traction. So the rest of the talk we'll go over these items. I won't have enough time to go. These are again. There's a book written around it, but I want to just cover enough to show you how when we went from 15 to 55 and what we want to do next. It's setting up the stage for us for that. Okay, so vision. So again, an entrepreneur has stuff in their head, right? Say, I remember myself telling new prospects and new hires, there's a plan in my head, trust me. Okay, some people trusted me, which I don't think how they did it, but most of them have no idea. So your big thing here is everyone rowing in the same direction? Okay, so you may have a thought in your head, you may want to do something, but unless you communicate that out, your team will not get aligned. And this is again part of the scaling up. If you can take it out of your head and take out that vision statement, so you've probably heard of vision and mission and core values, you're going to see a practical use of it. And go back in TechArk, you can look at our social feeds and you'll see all of this, how it's getting applied. So the team was growing and we said, okay, I cannot be meeting every one of you, I cannot be controlling everything. I was controlling a lot of these things, but how do you scale? And so we created a vision statement, which I'll show you in a minute. And so we gave it to the team. We created a leadership team in our office. So there's a group of about 6 to 8 people that sit on this team. It's not just Pratik and Pratik's head anymore. Different departments have a voice. They come in, and we kind of help them figure out, okay, what is the business after and what is the vision. Then as we were hiring, we started figuring out what's the best ways to hire. And how do you find the right people in the right seats? This is again very, very critical to a business that is growing and is going to add people. This is the culture of the company, which you will see very, very heavily demonstrated in our channels as we talk. Everything is coming from a lot of what we're talking about here. So there is a common rule book in a sense, that is driving us forward. So there may be a blog going out right now on my website, which I will have never seen. But I don't mind, because as long my vision and the direction is clear, and the team can post it. It doesn't have to even be proofread by me. The data. So you want to. This is the part where you've probably heard this: work on your business and not in your business. You cannot get to that unless you have a snapshot. Okay? Because if you don't have a data piece of it, if you don't have a scorecard that gives you a snapshot of your business, you're an ostrich. You just dig your head in the sand and just think, nobody's coming to get you. But that's where, if you have a snapshot, you can go back and look at it and say, okay, yes, we are on the right track or we are off. Okay, and if you're off, that's when issues come. So typically issues, and we'll go deeper into this in the next few slides here, but issues are things that prevent you from scaling. Okay. And as you're building your business, a lot of times politics sets in. A lot of times people with different types of personalities come in, and they start bringing their own agendas, their own goals. Unless the culture makes it where the issues can be very transparently discussed, they are not to bring down anybody. They are to say, okay, this is a common problem that's going to prevent us from achieving our vision. That's where these issues. So issues are not problems. Issues should not be looked at bad things. Issues are good, as long as they come out and you can discuss them. Processes. This goes back to the E-Myth part as well, that define your process as much as you do. Whatever you're doing, document it, process it. I love checklists. Okay, and there's a book called Checklist Manifesto, so that they talk about how doctors, when you go to a hospital, how they do their things. Everything is like a checklist-driven thing. So what I found over the years is people don't like to read paragraphs and paragraphs of documentation. But if you give them a checklist and you ask them to check it, and their name is on the check mark, they'll do it. You still have to enforce it, because most of them will just check it. You have to go back and review it and say, yes, you did all these steps or not. But these processes are extremely important, again, as part of scaling up. And traction is the piece that kind of brings it all together for your team. Okay? So we'll go deeper into these items. Any questions here so far? So either I'm doing a good job explaining, or you're not understanding at all, right? I'll take it as a form. Okay. So the vision statement. This is our vision statement. This did not come out of vacuum. This did not come out of just my head. You have to include, and this is, guys, again, I'm talking about a path where you've gone from a certain stage in your business, you have certain people involved that you can trust, that are hired based on the values that you saw in them before you hired them. Now, that team is going to take you to the next scaling up part. And that's why all these 6 things become so important. Because you cannot be everywhere doing everything. If I'm here right now for an hour or two, the business still has to work. Somebody still has to sell for me. Somebody still has to do the website. Somebody still has to build those apps. And those things do not happen if you don't put these pieces in place. So the first thing we did is, what is our vision statement? So we did it almost in all cases that hard. If I'm trying to define the future, what are you going to be, right? It's like figuring out that name. And so we went and said, okay, our customers, if you look at Google, you see the reviews we've gotten, our customers trust us. That is one of the reasons we got all this business we got. And so we said, we want to be a trusted technology and marketing innovator because we are a technology and marketing focused company. But we don't just do the status quo. We don't just keep repeating the same things. We try to innovate every time. We're going in and figuring out newer ways of doing things, and that is why the customers like us. So we added the word innovator. And then we said, Hampton Roads is not a New York, Hampton Roads is not a Boston, it's not an LA, right? If TechArk had started in those markets, I don't know what the presence would have been. We started in Hampton Roads, there was a gap, there were businesses that needed us, we would meet them, we were not stuck in traffic, like there were a lot of different reasons that I could meet as many people as I met. And so we said, let's go after the metropolitan markets, right? So when you define your vision, this is not year 1, year 2. This is, you're saying 10 years, if my business stays around, if I'm doing these things right, that's what the team is going to go after. So there's another term for it, it's called a BHAG. So it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. So just put it out there and you say, okay, this is, if we do everything right, and the team stands behind it, this could be 10 years, 20 years in the making. And so that's where we are in the world. We have clients, as I said, in Israel, we have clients in Canada. We actually don't have much in India. You think that there will be much, but that's maybe another area. So this is our vision statement, and then we communicated it to the rest of the team. So we sat down with the company, we had a demonstration, we presented it with examples, and showed them why this. In the beginning, we didn't have the word innovator in it. Somebody again said, we should add the word innovator. So I think we had something else in here, we changed it in agency, we changed it out to innovator. There were other changes made based on the team's input, but you get the team's buy-in by doing that. And so now the team is aligned with this. You have to constantly repeat this with the new hires. You have to go back and remind this even to my current company. The employees, if you go back and ask, some of them would have forgotten. So you have to keep going back and remind them that this is what we all agreed to, this is what we're after. The next big thing is people. Right people in right seats. As you hire, you can be, so there are some CEOs that like to meet every single hire that they make. There will be time again as you're scaling up, your team leads would want to make the hires. And that's how you show the trust part of it. Okay? We are a trusted technology and marketing. So we have to trust even internal teams. And so we said, okay, how are we going to do this where Pratik was making all these hires? Now each team lead should be able to do this. They should know what, and eventually they will know the profitability of each department so that they can drive it further. Okay? And so again, attraction kind of set that platform for us, saying, how do you hire these people? How do you find and say, okay, if I met this person right here, what would be the things I would ask? What would Naresh ask when he meets you, if he was hiring you? Okay? And so that's where we are going into the next thing is the values. Okay? Core values. Are you familiar with the concept? So core values, there's a thing behind this called culture. You've probably heard this word thrown around a lot, company culture. Right? So company culture, the best I understand it, is it's an unwritten rule, an unwritten set of rules. When you're not around, how does your company operate? How does your team operate? How do they communicate with your customer? How do they talk to your investors? How do they talk to your own internally, to your own employees? There's a lot to that. Okay? It's not a straight definition, but again, that's why it's an unwritten set of rules. You cannot define culture. Culture just happens across as you build the team. And part of the culture happens on these values. So what we did is, instead of creating values and just throwing words, we again put an internal quiz, an internal survey to the team. And we used Slack. And so we threw this thing out and I said, one thing I wanted to do with my previous employer, we had values, but nobody remembered them. right? We would forget them. That's another thing to remember, right? And so one of the idea, I think again I just read somewhere that Apple had values from each of its letter initials. So I liked the idea. I stole it. So I went back to my team and I said, TechArk, we have 7, they say typically it should be 3 to 7 words, 7 values, you shouldn't have more. We're right there at the boundary, 7 it is. I said, what does T mean, what does E mean? And we just started throwing internal ideas. Everyone pitched in with their own, what it meant for them, what did T stand for them, what E was for them. And there is now a group of almost 30, 35 people at that point pitching in and saying, here's what it means for me, right? And then we created a matrix out of that. Then we again brought in the leadership team and said, what do we want to go after? And so this is what we ended up with. And today, we hire and fire based on these values. Okay. A couple of weeks ago, we let somebody go because it was not focused on 2 of these values. We tried, gave the information, just wasn't getting across. And we have to prove the thing that if you're saying we're going to hire and fire, we're going to demonstrate that. Okay. Each one of us is defined. There are examples given. In our handbook, when the person signs for that first new hire paperwork, they're given these details, they're shown the vision, they're shown the values, and they're shown the definition behind them, what it means to them. Okay. Again, it's a work in progress. We have to constantly keep working at it and saying, and we try to come up with examples. If we do something right and somebody made their own decision, we go back and we have again a channel where we can push the things out and say, this is the person that just did that, right? We get a review, we push out on LinkedIn that, look, this is why we got this review. This is why somebody was able to take this decision on their own, because they know what is allowed and what is not allowed. Make sense? So these values are truly, truly important. You could come up with 3, you could come up with 7. These values are not set in stone. So, the first idea was great, that, hey, 7 letters, and most of them will remember these values. Because again, they're easy. You can start with TechArk and you can say, okay, trusted, empowered, highly motivated, accountable, responsive, knowledgeable, customer focused. So you can go through that and say, okay, I have at least a starting point to remember them. Now recently there's some feedback in saying, look, we need to revisit some of these. Maybe highly motivated needs to become high quality, because quality is a big, big focus for us. And we're going to go back and revise these values. It may not even get aligned to this acronym at this point, but that's where it's a living kind of document that you go through. So what you do is so let's say if I'm going to hire this gentleman right here. The way we would go about it is, again, I want to test your technical knowledge, right, for the position you're after. I'm going to explain to you what my position is, what this position demands of you, what are the needs that we will have. But the next thing very quickly we'll try to understand is, how do you align with these values? And there's a certain set of things we go after to what if type of scenarios. What would you do, right? And then there's the next part of it, GWC. Again, I like to, if you think about it now, I like acronyms. So it's easy for you to remember. GWC is a step further on top of values. So, do you get it? Do you understand this position that I'm after? Right? I'm picking on you because you're right here. So, do you understand this position? Do you understand what is asked of you? Do you get it? Do you want it? Are you hungry for it? Okay? Because there's a difference. You may get it, but you may not want it. You may be thinking it's entitled. None of that may work for my business. And do you have the capacity to do it? Okay, the capacity piece is very important, especially if you're hiring in the managerial positions or if you're trying to promote someone in your company. So you always think of it like basically you put all your employees in the left column, in the set of rows, and then you write all your values on the right, on the top, in the columns, right? And then you put GWC at the end. So there are a bunch of columns, and you can just go through each employee and you can check the boxes, yes or no. Does it meet all my values? Do they get it? Do they want it? Are they capable of doing it? It's not that you just fire everybody that doesn't meet those requirements. Okay? But then that gives you what you have to work with. Some people are meant for it, some people are not. Some people they may not have the capacity of doing what you need to do. Okay? Just like the E-Myth book got me to a certain point, but it could not have taught me these things that I learned from Traction. Okay? Maybe from 55 to go to 100, maybe there's another book that one of you may send me, or somebody else that I need to send me, or I may find it some other way. So it's never, that the same tool can just get you there, right? And so this is what we have been doing recently. For almost a year, we've been at it. As I said, we are hiring and firing based on these. So you at least now know the inner secrets of if you apply to TechArk, what you're going to go through. And it's a constant evaluation. 3-month, 6-month evaluation, we're going to go back and look at this and say, here's what you need to work on in order to meet the capacity side of things, or the want side of things or the get side of things. And as long as you're checking off these things, or maybe there are one or two areas we can work on, you're a good fit. If not, you're not a good fit for us. Questions? Right, so we've touched 2 pieces yet. We still have 4 more to go. How are we doing on time?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay.
And if you want to have Q&A, to make sure you get some back.
Sure. So this is some of my team. This is again, we have a lot of more team members here on this one, and you will see again a lot of these days. This is if you come to our office or if you see us on our social channels, the big thing you'll find is that culture. You can walk in. Now Pratik doesn't have to be there. 3 weeks I was in India in December. Went for a break, took a vacation. The business still kept running, and that, to my definition, I thought was a true topic that I could say, okay, yes, the business is scaling. Okay, scoreboard. I'll keep some of the last few ones brief here. But the scoreboard, so a business has marketing, sales, finance, customer service, production, which is operations. For me to step away and work on the business, now if I have a production lead, I have a marketing director, I have a sales director, these are people that now, because I did those things, I was the entrepreneur and the manager and the technician, I did all those things, nobody can give me just BS, right? There's stuff that I know what it takes because I've done those things. And so now there are things that they are uncovering, which I'm learning from them, because now there are things that they're able to go that I didn't have time for. And so the way you can summarize it is you make a company scoreboard. So we have a company scoreboard that it's very simple. There is basically in the columns, it's just a week ending. Okay, every week we put in numbers in there. And in the rows on the left side, we simply put in marketing, how many visitors came to our website, what is the AdWords we spent, what did it result in the number of calls, did we send out how many proposals, right? Then the sales comes in and says, okay, we were able to send out these many proposals, these many meetings, these many closed, these many lost. Operations comes in, okay, these many projects came in, design, development, production, QA, launch, where are they in the pipeline? Right? Getting me? So you just go down this line and say, okay, now client services, so you finish a project, have we sent them a thank you card, have we reached out to them on LinkedIn, have we asked for a referral? And all this is in a scoreboard that I can look back. Every Friday, I get this scorecard from my production lead. So you want to make one person accountable for this scoreboard, but you want to make all your team responsible for it. So your team leads feed it up to this one person, production team, and the production person feeds it up to me. Okay. Now again, this is where I am today. A few years ago, I would have been in those seats trying to find these numbers. Okay, but I didn't know about this, and again, we were lucky that we survived those years without that knowledge. But now at least it's kind of like it's very black and white. I can see it. The beauty of it is when you start seeing those weeks after weeks, you start seeing the trends. It's not the 1 week that matters, it's the trend. If you start seeing a trend, and Naresh is part of my digital marketing team, he can tell you, if we see a red going on the marketing side, we sit down and I am the hardest client at that point saying, why are we not getting the results if I'm spending these many dollars on the ad side of things? What are we doing different, or what could we be doing different to get it back on track? But now it's just simple numbers, and they typically say about 15 to 20 numbers. You don't want 100. Don't make it too complicated. Okay? And this is one other thing I'll tell you. Take the baby steps. Don't try and build a Ferrari. Just take the baby steps. Just put whatever you think. Make a Google document. Start putting a Google sheet. Put whatever you think is right. Okay? Chances are you're wrong. Okay? I'm still wrong with, I'm sure, the things that we're doing with some of the things. But that's how you make progress. As long as you remind and you discipline yourself to keep going back and revisiting and saying, I am not happy with the status quo. I want this can be done better, because in order to get to the 75 number, it cannot work like this. Make sense? Okay. So the scoreboard is very important. Issues, as I talked about, issues are not bad. Okay. We have it now where every Friday we meet, we have a leadership meeting, and we typically go through, which you will hear about some of the meetings, how we do these meetings as well. So the issues are really challenges across the company. So you want to have the leadership team that, again, in today's seats, if you're really the one person, you will have to wear those hats and keep revisiting from each of those positions. But otherwise, you want to just lay all of them down. You won't be able to tackle all of them at once. Okay? Don't get overwhelmed because there are so many issues. We have issues. Not everything is rosy. But you then start prioritizing. And what you do with those is you create. So this is a process that the book goes further into, that how do you identify the issue, how do you discuss it within the team, and then how do you come up with the solution. It's very easy. Okay? IDS, and then there's an acronym for that. I'm going to jump to the rocks part of it. So the issues, what you want to do is, say going through your business right now, you may have 20 issues, okay? Many, many issues. Now you go back through that, go with another sieve and say, what is the topmost stuff that I need to address right away? Is it related to sales? Is it related to my quality on the production side? Is it related to my marketing or money? Cash is important. And that's where you start prioritizing and you say, these issues I can only handle, and this is something I've struggled with, okay, because I'm sure there's so many things to do. How do you figure out the time? Okay, so you go back and you make rocks, and so you start making 90-day rocks for your team, and so each team member comes up with their own rocks. So once you have these issues and you've identified which are the topmost ones, then let the team own some of these issues and say, I am going to make a rock is basically a 90-day goal. Simple. That in 90 days, I will make substantial progress to solve this issue. It may be sooner, but I need 90 days, and these 90 days, I will be able to make a difference. And that better get done. Okay? That goes back to, again, if that is not getting done, you will see it on the scorecard, and you'll be able to find it in the meetings. And then you will get questioned, do they get it? Do they want it? Are they capable of doing it? So it's not disconnected again, they're all connected with each other. So you define those rocks, and then you do a level 10 meeting. And so level 10 is really a score of 10. And so every week we meet, we start with a segue, where we just talk about what is a personal win in the last week, what is a professional win. So we started out on a good, how many of you have gone to meetings where they're just boring? Right? You just sit there like, when will this end, right? Hopefully this talk is not that, right? And so, we go into these meetings and we say, okay, at this, we've actually even gone to the length of saying, look, we have 8 people in this room, this meeting is worth $1,000. By the time we step out of it, we would have spent an hour, that's $1,000 that we just spent sitting here that we could have done something else. Let's make a good use of that. And so we go in, we talk about our personal win, professional win, and then we go straight into issues. Okay, because issues is what is truly driving us forward. And we go into rocks from those. And we talk about rocks and we say, okay, what is stopping you from achieving this rock? That's truly the type of the meetings we say. Instead of saying, why have you not done that? Why is that? What is this? We try to stick with those rocks. And it is making such a considerable difference in my leadership, I can tell you. Because every week the team is motivated to make a difference. Okay? We set out certain rocks for the last quarter. We hit almost 90% of those rocks. That speed would not have happened if these goals were not set like that clearly. And the team gets behind it. Okay, it's not just Pratik trying to push everybody. The team gets behind and saying, I'm not going to let you miss that rock. Because the next time I need you, you will stand behind me. Okay? It's just wonderful to see that type of culture come alive. Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit. So this part here, I skipped over it, process. So I want to discount this one. But as you go through your people, as you identify the issues, as you set these rocks, you set this thing in motion, which is traction. Don't forget the processes and the documentation. So keep making sure that as your leadership team works, have them create those checklists, these small, again, take the baby steps. There's a lot of my team members, they like to perfect it. But you know what happens? The stuff doesn't get done. We keep coming back and saying, just tell me the 6 steps you did today. Take the screenshots, make me a document. We found a simple place where we put it, and those things now we can reuse. The next time we give it to somebody, hey Naresh, try to do these 6 things, he gets stuck, say, okay, there are 2 other steps missing. Make sense? So then we can go back and say, let's add those 2 other steps. Now Naresh gives it to somebody, okay, 8 steps, they can follow it, done. Pratik didn't have to even look at it. That's how we did the blog review process. A lot of these things, we just come up with these, say, now you don't even need to look at it. I'm very involved in the beginning, but then once it's there, we start following this thing to kind of scale this. Any questions? Good? Okay, so I kind of gave you 2 books in about an hour time, 45 minutes. Try and take some time, traction may not be the time for you right now, but maybe, definitely recommend emails for you. And then there may be other books that you're fond of, and, I would love to connect with you guys on LinkedIn and, keep sharing what you're reading. And it's not just reading, I've met a lot of people, and I wanted to just leave you with some of these tidbits. These are things that, I probably have much more than this, but I just want to put some of these that I practically can tell you has been very, very valuable for me. Be ready to work hard. Almost nothing comes easily. Okay? Going through what I've gone through and what we built, I know the next company I'm going to start, this is not going to be my only company. As I build the next things and what I'm learning here, I would be able to shortcut it or do a jumpstart because I know a lot of these things that I can put in place. But I know it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's going to be, I'm ready for the 2-year, 3-year type of grind that it will take. If I'm going to go with it, go at it with my own money. Makes sense? Because you have to find the right people, you have to find the process, you have to find the customers, those customers have to tell other customers. There's a bunch of stuff that goes around with it. It's a long road. Relationships are important. Not just personal. Personal is extremely important. Okay? For me, my wife has been the strongest support, has been the cornerstone. She left her jobs 2 times to allow me to do what I've done. Okay? To keep that strong focus on our family so that we don't mess up on either ways, right? Your relationships with your investors, relationships with your customers, relationships with your own employees. When you are going through a grumpy morning, you want to make sure that your team member gets it. That it's not his personality. This is why he is like this right now. And this is what I can do to help him. Okay? Always lead with an example. And this is true from a value standpoint. If you just throw out the values and you don't exhibit yourself with those examples, it's very hard to get that point across. And the team members will just take you for granted otherwise. So the culture you're trying to build will just completely go down otherwise. Don't be ashamed to ask questions. Okay? This is what I've done. I think I'm a master at that. That's one thing I'll give myself credit for. I ask a lot of questions, not worrying about what the other person will think of me. Okay? There are people in this room that are familiar with my my style. But typically the thing is I will throw a lot of these things. I'll get a lot of responses. I don't do everything that people tell me. Okay? I have my own judgment. I make mistakes, but I'm responsible for those mistakes. I have successes, I'm responsible for the successes. But I listen and I ask those questions, and it's something I find and I hang on to it. And then I put the entrepreneurial thing behind it, because that's what the entrepreneur does to really push it forward. Okay? And then this is what I wanted to end with, that this is our next step. We just opened a new production center in India. So a lot of these team members, they were working from their homes. They were, over the years we have so we are a team of about 55 people now and growing. And in December, while I was there, we were able to, so we don't own the entire building, guys. I did not buy this building. we rented a small space, it's a very small space, in one of the floors in this building. That is our next step. And this is where the journey continues. So the scaling up doesn't stop here for me. This is where I'm looking for the next steps and the next person that tells me what I need to do to get to the 100 or the 200 people. And I'm sure I'll make my own mistakes. I'll leave you with that.
Great. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure to follow @StromeEC to tune in next time.